Decorating Center. Good morning. Welcome to hour number 2 of the Art Lewis Show. And this morning we talk about the Midland Business Alliance and what's happening there. And we do that with its president and chief executive officer. And he is Tony Stamas. Tony, good morning.
Good morning, Art. Great to be with you.
And same here. So what's new at the MBA, the Midland Business Alliance?
Well, it's. I think you kind of get into the fall, although technically still summer. But you get into the fall, and just ramps up a lot of great events, a lot of activity. I'm a regular at Noon Rotary. I got to hear from the great Art Lewis a few weeks back, so that was you did a wonderful job.
That was fun, actually. That's a great group.
Yeah, thank you. It is, but yeah, you everybody really enjoyed that, so it was great you could join us. But yeah, we've had some really exciting announcements. Corteva recently did a groundbreaking. They're doing a almost $28 million research and development project in the iPark that Dow has there, and that's really exciting. I mean, I think they're kind of came out of that spin a number of years ago, and they're focused in terms of the agriculture space, both in crop protection and seed development. And kind of you always want to have that research and development here locally, because that kind of spurs when there's new ideas and their creativity. So they did a groundbreaking, and my understanding was the next day they were going to start working on that project. So that was really good to see, and I think that's we've continued to see investment from these companies that came out of that spin. Yeah. Be it certainly Dow, DuPont, Corteva, and I think that really bodes well for the community in the region.
I did notice, though, I think we have in the news that Corteva is proposing a split. Is that going to have impact on you?
Yeah, they said they're looking at it, and I haven't seen. I know the Wall Street Journal article had that. You never know. It's kind of ever changing. I think the kind of legacy you had Dow, which Indianapolis, and I think there was overlap, but certainly a legacy, crop protection. DuPont had some, Iowa, big footprint in terms of seeds. And so I think they're looking at that, and who knows where that'll go. But what I'll say is that we've seen these changes, and, what's known as Methacel, Ethicel used to, for a period of time after the spin was DuPont, and then it was IFF, and then and now it's Roquette. And in those cases, we found good partners. They're still investing here. They're still here locally. So, you kind of have to be flexible, but I feel like if, they've kind of got to make the best decisions from a business standpoint. But, so far, we've continued to see the jobs here and the investment here. So we'll stand watch.
Yeah, I mean, they announced the split, or they're looking at the split, but at the same time, $28 million is being invested in Midland. So that should tell you something.
Yeah, absolutely. And and I think anymore you've got and I think they appreciate this. You've got really experienced people, talented people, and they're here. And I think they place a high value on that. They've invested in equipment and operations, and they place a high value on that. And so I think generally, it's not absolute, but it makes the case to continue to build kind of on legacy sites, even if the organization's formation might look different.
I know you don't work there, but I mean, Dow came through a tough year or two, couple of years with downturns. Do you see a rebound?
Yeah, I think we've had a chance, at different occasions to hear Jim Fitterling speak, and he's always very forthright. And there's some global challenges, whether it's in Europe or, kind of across the landscape. And, I think they're working hard every day to kind of navigate that. And it's not something that's unique to them. I think others that are kind of in a similar space have felt that in terms of, economic factors. So, I think this team is a great leadership team, and, the folks kind of at every level from the top to, the people who are just starting there, are committed to navigating this, and they've seen over their lifetime some challenging times, and I'm confident. And I think as a community, as a region, we're always stand ready to partner and help, because they have just been kind of the definition of a great community partner, a great legacy partner. But I'm absolutely confident they're going to navigate through this, and find a path that'll continue to help them grow and sustain like they have for, over 125 years.
In talking to the leaders of these companies like Dow, Corteva, et cetera, have they said much about tariffs and what impact it's had?
I haven't heard a lot. I think for all of them, it's as a global business, it has different impacts in different places. I think for any business, you kind of want certainty. You want to, certainly you have an idea about what would be most advantageous in terms of operation, but you want to know what the landscape is. So I think, and, we've seen some in certain spaces. I think as we're able to get more clarity on that, I think for all of them, then they can kind of know, okay, this is what the landscape, at least for the foreseeable future, looks like, and then we can make informed decisions. And so I think that's probably the piece we've heard the most. In some places, well, it works, and others it doesn't. But I think for all of them, just to kind of know, okay, this is where we can make the decisions that we need to make going forward.
Now, of course, we talk about the Dows and the Cortevas and the DuPonts, but what about the rest of the business in Midland? How are they all doing? How's the economic health of Midland?
Yeah, my sense is it's really strong. I mean, it's every business kind of has their own set of circumstances, but we get to do ribbon cuttings as part of with our ambassadors, and we'll go around, and we've had a lot of business startups, and it's kind of a regular flow. Now sometimes we're celebrating an anniversary or an investment in their building, but and oftentimes, probably most times, it's small businesses that we're doing these for, and so yeah, it's exciting. We had we've done this a number of years in partnership with the Midland Area Community Foundation, a crowdfunding campaign, and our young professionals, my pros, lead this and put this on, and they work with small businesses and just say, if you can crowdfund. Now, this year was the largest we've ever done. If the business that was selected crowdfunded $25,000, they would get a $35,000 match, so $60,000, which is incredibly significant for a small business. And so, really, some good applications. The young professionals selected Crepe Edemy and Iron Dame, which is on Townsend, right in downtown Midland. And they kind of had a pitch that they wanted to help that whole block on Townsend and other businesses that are right on that block. And so it went down to the wire. They have a month to raise this. It went down to the wire, and I think the day before it ended, the calendar date ended, they had raised the money, and they're going to get the match. And so, that's great to see. That's our young professionals are fully invested in leading in it. We got small businesses that are helping raise the money from family, friends, supporters, customers, and then our local community foundation really adding so much to that. So that's that's exciting. It'll be nice to see that impact on Townsend Street.
Yeah. All right, Tony, hang on. I got to take a break, and we'll be back. We're talking to Tony Stamas, President and CEO of the Midland Business Alliance.
Farmers need a grain bin?
Hi, we're back with you here on WSGW, and we are chatting with Tony Stamas, President and CEO of the Midland Business Alliance. Let's talk about a couple of things under your umbrella, like the Midland Area Farmers Market. How's it doing this year?
It's doing great. We've had a really a wonderful season so far. Now this is kind of a peak time for just having Michigan grown produce, and so really great crowds, a wonderful group of vendors, and the Baseball Foundation over at Dow Diamond have just been tremendous partners. So it's going really well. We celebrated Farmers Market Week a couple weeks ago, and the team is kind of getting ready. Next year we'll be celebrating 80 years of a farmers market, so we're gonna make sure some special things are in plan. But yes, it kind of goes through both days into the end of October, and then we have a shorter schedule, but we go into November. And sometimes in November it gets a little weather dependent, but still can get some really good crowds. So the market's going great.
Is the Dow Diamond East parking lot liable to be its permanent home?
We're working with where exactly, but we're working with the Baseball Foundation. I think the location there has just been really wonderful. It was when we had the double hit in 2020 of a pandemic, and then which we had. Emily and her team kept the farmers market going. We had drive-through farmer market where everybody was wearing masks, and it's hard to imagine that 5 years ago. And then when we got flooded, we moved it over here. and just, as we looked at it long term, I say that's not in the floodplain down where we were, which we loved by the church. It's in the floodway. It's the primary area where water, and it logistically couldn't make the case to go back there. But they have been such great partners, and so we're working with them on what a long term farmers market might look like, and they have been just tremendous. So more to come on that, but I think it's kind of an extension of the downtown, and we kind of have a great accessibility, and I think people, we get a lot of compliments. I had one of our vendors tell me a couple of years ago, they said, and they do farmers markets around the state, and they said, parking isn't the number one thing for farmers markets, but it's pretty high on the list. And I know that's fair. So.
Got to have it. So the property that was the farmer's market that got flooded out, what's the future of that? Any?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's such a great location. If you go down there now, you kind of you look across there, and they've cleared it out along the river, and they're working on the Poseyville Preserve over there, and it's just going to be amazing. To be able to go across the Tridge, and then come back along on where 4D used to be kind of an industrial site, and come back across over by Dow Diamond and East End on the newly named Founders Crossing. And so I think it's more impetus to continue to develop that area down there, because it is just an amazing setting. So the city's working on that with their parks team. They've just kind of down the road done, worked on a significant upgrade with Emerson Park, and so now they're looking at that as well. So yeah, I think it will be that's. Just kind of a wonderful part of our downtown, and we want to make sure that it's open and that people can use that, and it's there for families and individuals, and the rail trail runs right through there. So I think that's going to be exciting. It always takes time to put that there, and you do have to make sure that, since it is part of the floodway, that the design recognizes that. But the city team does amazing work, so we'll look forward to seeing how that moves forward.
Well, since you brought up that magic word flood,
yes.
How's the flood mitigation project doing?
It's going really well, and it's actually very timely. We've got, we've been working with the Army Corps of Engineers for the last 5 years, and they've been great partners. And one of the things that's on their top of the list is transparency. So we've got coming up next Wednesday, September 24th, over at Northwood, that they're going to provide an update on the process, because they're what's called the General Investigation Study, looking at potential solutions for kind of the legacy flooding issues. And so they're going to provide an update. The County of Midland, our Drain Commissioner, is going to provide an update. The City of Midland, who is doing some specific work on that, and then our group that's kind of been helping to work with all of our partners through here, the Midland Business Alliance, our advisory committee on infrastructure. So that's going to be the 24th over at Northwood. At the Griswold Center. So we'll kick it off at 5:30. Let people start coming in around 5, and just give updates and get questions. And so hopefully we also put out a new newsletter that people can sign up through the city or through our website that we'll do about quarterly, just providing, again, updates on everything that's happening in that area. So a lot of activity. You always want it to move quickly, but there's a process to go through. But, it really has been a partnership with the City of Midland, the County of Midland, the Midland Business Alliance, and, Army Corps of Engineers is just very invested. And legislatively, for all the challenges we hear on a daily basis, we have had bipartisan support. People have just stepped up to the plate and, kind of went to bat and, made sure, okay, we've got the funding that we need to do this general investigation study and have to do a local match. The city stepped up to do that. So that's been encouraging to see that.
I know you're not directly involved, but it relates. What's your understanding of the Four Lakes group and the dams and the lakes? Where are they?
Yeah, just reading it, it sounds like they're moving forward. Again, there was a bit of a pause there with the court proceedings, but they are moving forward, and I think the hope is to have Sanford done by the end of the year, and then environmentally you can only fill it at certain times, so I think it would be to the spring. But I just, like so many people, can't wait to see that filled, to drive across US 10 and see a lake back, and I think that's just it really is. I always say it's what Four Lakes has done, what the community has done, so many parties have done to make this possible is just the side of a miracle, and that's probably underselling it. It's just you look around the country, and that generally doesn't happen, and it's really going to be exciting. The other ones will take a little bit longer. With Wixom, you're dealing actually with 2 dams, and so but I think starting with that, and then in the next year and a half, 2 years, they'll all be back up, and that's just going to be really, really exciting. People have, I think, been waiting for that, and enjoy a beautiful Michigan summer on one of those lakes is going to be tremendous.
So, Tony, what do those dams and lakes mean to economic development for Midland and for the economy of the area?
Yeah, it really is. It's really an integral part. I mean, you kind of look at it locally for Sanford. That's so important. It's people running downtown, going to a restaurant, going to get gas. It's people kind of shopping in all the places around there. It's for the homeowners. I mean, you talk to so many that their families have had places there on the lake or just off the lake for decades, and that's kind of their childhood memories, their parents' childhood memories. And so it's something when we look at, for people that want to come here, we've got a lot of people that, live along those lakes. They work in Midland, or people that live in Midland and they just go up and enjoy the lakes on the weekend. The Sanford Park that the county does is just a wonderful park that families have enjoyed for so many years. So it really does mean a lot. We did a video, Midland Awaits, just kind of talking about the great things that we want people to know about and when they might consider coming to Midland. And the first video had a scene of boating on Sanford Lake, which is, and then when we were redoing it a couple of years later, we're like, well, really not fair to show that because that's not accurate today. So they edited it to show some wonderful kayaking, which still happens. I see it. They come to downtown and they go at Chippewa Nature Center, but it'll be fun to be able to add back in that lakes because that's one of the great things that we have here in Michigan, and certainly it's something that we want to promote to people that are considering our area.
Tony, hang on, take a break here, and we'll come back. We're talking to Tony Stamas. He is the president and CEO of the Midland Business Alliance.
We're proud to make
is the best place to go for your authentic home-cooked foods with a European flair at reasonable prices. Now's the time to think about getting together with friends and family for lunch or dinner, as well as events coming up soon like graduations, confirmations, weddings, showers, anniversaries. Krishak's has an economical way for you to supply the food. You can order what you want in Polish and American foods and then just pick it up at the restaurant ready to go. Or have your celebration right there. And don't forget, at a moment's notice, Krishak's can help. Call 989-894-5531. Krishak's House Family Restaurant, corner of Cass and Michigan on Bay City's south side.
We all hear the
Business Alliance. Tony, one of the things we all know that there's a lot of major employers around here looking for a lot of people, but we have to have places for them to live. Housing is a problem. And you have an initiative called Housing Forward, I think. Is that right?
That's correct.
Well, what is that all about, and what does it do?
Yeah, and that speaks to exactly what you were saying, is that, housing is a challenge, here in Midland and Great Lakes Bay region, across the state, and frankly, across the country. And so, we're trying to figure out, okay, what are ways that we can remove barriers, put tools in place to help with this. And, as we looked at it, kind of around the region, there's great folks working in the affordable housing space. And, certainly on the higher end, there's kind of a business case oftentimes to continue to build. But it's really what we kind of think of as workforce or attainable housing that's the challenge. And, they're all kind of interconnected. I think I've told this before. When people say, what kind of housing do you need? My answer is yes. But we really focused with this Housing Forward on the workforce attainable housing, Because it's kind of dominoes that if you can have that type of housing, then people who may start out in affordable housing are moving up to that, and then it opens up more affordable housing, and there's a continuum there. So we're working, Jen Acosta, who's kind of worked in the space for years and really is incredibly knowledgeable about it, Nicole Wilson on our team. We had some support that really made it possible from the Strosacker Foundation, the Midland Area Community Foundation, working with developers. Okay, here are the tools. Really had a great working relationship with Mishta because the director, Amy Hovey, sees the exact same thing. Okay, how do we, we want to keep the tools in place for affordable housing, but we got to work on attainable housing. And I always say, my son a couple of years ago when he was still in high school was in the building trades program at Bullet Creek. And they built a nice place. I think it was 3-bedroom out in Ashby Road, nice neighborhood and everything. But a lot of student labor, and of course they have the professionals come in and inspect it and do certain parts of it. But they were finished, and I said, "Well, buddy, what are they selling that for?" And he says, $300,000.
Yeah.
I said, no, you mean 200,000? Like, no, Dad, 300,000. And he was not wrong, as is often the case. Yeah. And it's amazing, kind of how we've seen that change in terms of workforce attainable housing. And I think it's going to be a combination of things. We got to look at, okay, what are some of the things driving up cost that we can adjust? I mean, some of it's workforce, some of it's materials, but then from a regulatory standpoint, and I know the city of Midland's been working hard on that as well. But what things can we do that? So we did a housing study was part of this, and because it had been since 2018 since we'd had one, and the world has changed a couple times over since then, and really just reinforced the need. And so we've got some good pieces. River Cat has just announced this week they're moving forward with over 200 rental units on East Lawn, the site of an old former school there, and I think that will certainly help. But we've kind of got to do that at every level, and if we can, I think Midland, I think the Great Lakes Bay region is a place people want to live. But, as HSC and Corning and others, do their expansions, we've got to give them housing options.
Well, and the thing was, years ago, a good starter home, let's say 1,500 square feet, you could build it and probably sell it for $150,000.
Right.
Now, with building costs starting somewhere around $300 a square, you're looking at $400,000 for the same house.
Yeah.
And who can afford it? And I think
it is. And yeah.
Multiple dwellings are going to be the answer, aren't they? More rentals and things of that nature.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is part of it. I think looking at the lots, and you say how can you do that? We looked at a program that I think Jen Acosta had seen from down south, YIMBY, which is or YIGBY rather. Yes, in God's backyard. And so a number of churches have these large portions of property, and some of them are looking at taking some of that have just kind of been open space and using it for building housing, workforce housing. And so, I think we're going to have to be creative to do that, kind of look at some of the legacy things, and those have changed, and say, okay, how do we adjust so that we can reduce that? I think part of this is going to be looking at, there are people out there who are doing pre-builds on a large portion of a house, and it's not kind of what we might have thought of 20, 30 years ago, and doing some amazing work on that, okay, if you can get the property and you can bring that in and you can work with the infrastructure there, then that offers some opportunity to keep those homes in get them built and then, and arrange that people in the attainable space, the workforce space, can actually afford them.
Churches are smart because they build those houses, they'll pick up new members.
Absolutely. It's easy to walk over there on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you hang on for one more segment?
Absolutely.
All right. Tony Stamas, President, CEO of the Midland Business Alliance. We'll be back with him after these notes.
See there, I got
And back for one final segment with Tony Stamas from the Midland Business Alliance, where he's president and CEO. Tony, I know they're not in your county, but we have Corning looking for 1,500 employees. We have Hemlock Semiconductor looking for a couple hundred, and there are others in the Great Lakes Bay region. Have you talked to any of them as to how they're doing finding the skilled people they need?
Yeah, I mean, HSC is a great partner with I think all of our regional organizations, and kind of that having those conversations, and so it's kind of there isn't any one solution, but we talked about part of that. Housing is a huge part of that. That as they're recruiting folks from certainly here in this area, around the area, but really around the state and around the country for those jobs. Finding housing, childcare is a huge issue, and a lot of us are working on that and working on a regional basis. And that's a product of private sector, working with the schools, the intermediate school districts, what's available, making sure people have a clear picture of that, looking at, they have, great staffing challenges. Sometimes they have the physical space, but they just don't have the number of people. And then, I think the other one I would put in that mix is broadband. It's kind of tying right in with the housing. As you look at connectivity, you can work around the globe, you can work anywhere, but you need to have that. And so we actually, I think in the next couple of weeks, we'll have a formal announcement on this from the state on grants. It's been a number of years coming, but it will look at ISPs, internet service providers, building out in rural areas that right now don't have any connectivity. And I think those all go hand in hand. And and I think from the broader level, we're all trying to work, and the team over there does a great job. We work with our friends at the Great Lakes Bay Regional Alliance about how do we let people know the great things that are happening here, the wonderful things that we see every day. How do we get that message out to a broader audience?
Now, one of your initiatives is called RAD Talent.
Right.
What does RAD stand for? Let's start with that.
Yeah. Retaining, attracting, and developing talent.
Very good. Very good. How's it doing?
So it's doing really good. We're doing some videos that we should have out here soon, and I think it's kind of partners with working with Community Foundation's got a great team on Max Loves Midland. Like I said, the Regional Alliance has the podcast I had fun doing a month or so ago over at your station, and so I think it's going well. I mean, you kind of start out with retaining. I mean, people that grow up here that know that. I mean, I think for most of us, you think at some point, okay, I want to go away. There's this wonderful place, but so many people I talked to, there was someone who worked in state government, and so they grew up in downtown Midland. They were an only child. They wanted nothing more than to move away, and they went to college and got married and just started a family, and they said, I would like nothing more than to move back. And so we want to help them to do that in terms of jobs and all of those other things. So, attracting, that's telling our story. And it's, letting people know what we have, what we're, I think, hopefully every community is proud of its community, but I think we've got a great story to tell, and certainly developing. I mean, that's, people are, as they've looked at this, and Jason Story and our teams kind of helped lead this, it's really not just at the college end. It's not people in mid-career. I mean, there are people who are finishing careers. There are people who are, it's kind of across the whole spectrum. I always say, when you're younger, you say, what do you want to do when you grow up? And what I didn't realize is that's a lifelong discussion. You say when you're 18, when you're 40, when you're 60, when
82.
you're 70, 82. Yeah, and just kind of having that mindset that, look, we've got incredible talent across the spectrum, and how do we develop that? And maybe people are doing a new path, give them an opportunity to really make an impact.
We spent years and years, maybe decades, telling people they had to have a 4-year college degree. 4-year college. We were hit over the head with it. And while all that was happening, we sacrificed vocational training. Have we seen a movement back now to vocational training where young people who don't necessarily want to go to college for that academic degree but want to learn a skill are now taking advantage of that vocational training?
I think so, and I hope so. I mean, it's personal to me. I mentioned my son working in building trades. He's at Delta to be a diesel mechanic. And he is, he's got a gift for that. He's really good. He tells me, I know how to fix this. I'm like, really? And he does. And most of my tools he's taken, and that's probably better for both of us because I do not have that skill set.
Yeah, I understand that.
But it's interesting that, we were at church and they were telling a couple of the students were saying they were graduating, what they were going to do. And people came up afterwards and they thought it was great, but they were surprised and wondered if we were okay with it. And I said, boy, I'm thrilled. He's good at this. He has a talent for this, a gift for this. I always tell him, work hard and do a good job and you will never